real life.
Okay. Ronan?
Yep.
Yeah. You can
So, hi
start.
guys. I think we'll start now.
Yeah.
Okay, so hi guys. I'm Ronan, AIML head at Developer Society BITS Goa. I welcome you all to this kickoff session of this 3-week RAG and LLM Bootcamp. So, as you know, this cohort is a collaborative initiative by Pathway, DevSoc, and BITS Pilani K Birla Goa Campus. So, Pathway is a leading generative AI company. It is led by remarkable individuals. So its CEO, Susanna, has articles published by the National Academy of Sciences, USA, and the CTO, Jan, has co-authored papers with Joshua Bengio and Geoffrey Hinton, one of the two godfathers of AI. So a lot of effort is being put in by both parties for the success of this cohort. I request all of you to make best use of this opportunity and take this bootcamp seriously. So I now call on our speaker for tonight on behalf of Pathway, Mudit Srivastava. Over to you, Mudit.
Hey Ronan, hi. Hey Divyansh, hi.
Hello.
Hi folks.
Hi.
Okay, I can see we have a good number of people here. So let's quickly start off with an introduction. I am, first off, thanks for the introduction of Pathway, Ronan and Divyansh. As you know, like Pathway is, like for those of you who do not know about Pathway, the website is, by the way, quite simple. It's pathway.com. Pathway is an open source framework for data processing for both like batch and streaming use cases. It's quite aggressively used when you have to work on a stream of data, and especially for low latency use cases, mission critical use cases, and sees a lot of applications in the LLM space. So that's why the logic was a small company, like mostly researchers in the company, and the idea was that, yeah, fair enough, we have folks who have created impact. Why don't we leverage the in-house expertise to go and create a curriculum that is helpful for all of you out here? Okay, so that's pretty much the context about why we are here today. And this is the kickoff for the learning journey that we have in front of us. So with that, let me quickly start. By the way, if you all are like joining from different colleges, I believe obviously a lot of people are from um, KK Birla BITS Goa, basically. So, but if you're from different campuses, from different colleges, do feel free to drop an introduction of yourself, where you're joining from, which college or which organization. That will be a good way for you to encourage and engage with other folks who are joining live. Meanwhile, let me quickly start and share. Let me quickly share my screen so that I can walk you through the uh, through the learning journey that we have in front of us. Okay, cool. One second. Share my screen. Yeah. One second. Yeah. Sorry, once again, I'm not finding the option to share the screen. Please bear with me for a moment. Okay, I'm getting an option of sharing my entire screen. I'll do that. Okay, cool. So this particular session is a kickoff session. We'll get started in this particular session. We'll understand what we're going to learn. We'll also understand why we're going to learn what we're going to learn. Okay. So first off, this is a collaborative initiative by these three entities. Divyansh and Ronan were kind enough to introduce DevSoc. You know about BITS Pilani Goa Campus, BITS Pilani for sure. And about Pathway, for those of you who do not know, you can actually go to pathway.com, explore what it does. To give a very quick introduction, it's a small, when I say small, as in it's a very lean, small group of deep tech folks. So it's a Python data processing framework. It's an open source framework for analytics and AI pipelines or data streams. It's quite aggressively used for real-time processing use cases, ETL, RAG pipelines, and more. What is RAG is something that we see here, and some really cool folks like Formula One, some iconic Formula One companies. There are people like NATO, the defense organization uses Pathway. Roughly, some of the biggest logistics and IoT players in Europe, they use Pathway. So what is it exactly? We have understood quickly. You can go and explore its repositories here. These are the repos that we will also try to cover within the bootcamp, so you know how you can build applications on top of it. The bootcamp, the logic behind creating this is that I'll quickly show you. So first off, the idea was that yes, we are a group of folks who have done like decent impact in the field, and we thought, okay. By the way, yeah, I see a question in the comments. That is awesome. You can feel free to put your comments. We'll be having a look at them and answer them for sure. I can see a question from Warren, for example. So as you can see, we have people who have had a very stellar experience in this domain, and the idea was that if we have this in-house expertise, and we definitely want to be one of the leading players in the long-term spectrum. So it's great to go and empower and do it the right way, and go and empower the change makers of tomorrow. And that's why we're talking to all of you and providing this free resource. It's 100% free, no caveat for anything. The only thing that is requested and that must be required from you is that one, you learn the concepts. Second, you complete the quizzes. Third, you build the open source project as per the guidelines. It's very mandatory that you adhere to the quality standards and the guidelines that we put across. And it will be our responsibility to take you through that particular point where you can build that impactful project. In a very short period of span itself, we've seen people who have, because this curriculum is also taught at other universities, top universities worldwide, including a lot of IITs in India. So we've seen that folks have gotten freelancing opportunities, people have gotten internships at both government and private organizations and academia. So, but for your project to be able to serve that purpose, the goal is that you should definitely be able to be very diligent. You should try to put your efforts as well. This is an online session. This is an online boot camp anyway. So there's only so much that we can do. To give a quick introduction of the creators behind the course, we have Jan Chorosky. Jan is the CTO of Pathway. He's worked with Google Brain, has a spectacular number of citations. He has worked with Benjo and Hinton. For those of you who do not know Joshua Benjo and Geoff Hinton, these are two of the three godfathers of AI. The third one being Jan LeCun, who is the chief AI scientist at Meta. We have Adrian, who is the CPO at Pathway. He did his PhD at 20, taught at Ecole Polytechnique for a long period of time, been in industrial research for 15 plus years. He also co-founded Spodge. Spodge is one of the OG competitive coding platforms, if you know of it. CodeChef used to use Spodge, HackReath used it. A lot of other companies used to use it for evaluating codes in real time at scale. Then we have Anup, we have Sergey. Anup is an advisor with Texas A&M. We have Sergey, IOI gold medalist, previously head of service at Yandex. Yandex is the Google of Russia. There's Berke, and then last Berke is a LLM researcher, and then that's me here. Apart from that, within the bootcamp, we have resources that are contributed by folks who are some of the finest folks in the industry. This includes both Pathway members and beyond Pathway members. For example, Lukasz Kaiser. He is co-inventor of Transformers architecture and TensorFlow. He's also an early supporter of Pathway, he's an advisor of Pathway. He's a senior researcher at OpenAI. He's one of the co-creators of some very popular things like ChatGPT, for instance. And the team ChatGPT, by the way, is Transformer. So he's one of the guys who has created Transformer. He talks about future of LLMs, and this is a very recent thing that he has prepared and delivered. So quite powerful in nature. Then there's a session by Vijay on Vision Transformers. Vijay is an Europe's author. He's previously led the R&D wing for Walmart. He's currently senior ML research leader at Microsoft. I have Olivia, a wonderful friend and colleague of mine from Pathway, did his PhD on KNNs. So for those of you who already have some context around LLMs, you would know how much important this becomes. And then we have Jay Prasad. He's a very popular figure in the AI space of India. He's currently the head of data science and AI at National Payments Corporation of India, which is the maker of UPI, IMPS, BBPS, and a lot of fintech things that we see in India. Pretty much by the end of this bootcamp, you will be able to build LLM and RAG applications using these tools. And this is just to give you some context, like the idea behind dumping these logos is that if you have been hearing these names somewhere here and there, and you do not know how to build applications on top of this, then you will pretty much be able to do it. That's the funda. But the idea is that we will be learning. It's a pretty much applied AI kind of course, applied Gen AI course. But we'll also be covering and understanding what we're building. Like we'll try to decipher what is going under the hood while we're trying to build these things. Now let's quickly understand what Gen AI and RAG is, because I've used these terms multiple times: LLMs, RAG, and so on and so forth. So first of all, like I believe all of you might know what generative AI is. Traditionally, if you look at it, it obviously can come and like it comes under the realm of deep learning. Deep learning models traditionally were of two types, like generative and discriminative in nature. And once we came to a point where we saw that we were able to put a lot more compute and a lot more layers in our models, in our neural networks, so we saw that we could build more powerful models, and then came the invention of transformer architecture and LLMs, which are very large language models, and that kind of powered us to build some really powerful applications out there. Now let's understand like why LLMs are important here. Like traditionally, if you look at previous models which were there, like let me go back to the slide, because let me go I'm just trying to pick a slide which is not so cluttered, but okay, let us continue with this one. So if you look at the traditional models or the traditional ML development, if you look at it, you'll typically try to figure out a model that is either you will build it in house, which serves a particular purpose. For example, you will build a model for translation, you will build a model for summarization, or you will pick a model from Hugging Face or any other platform out there and then fine tune it on your data. Correct? But then when we saw that there were some companies who were able to train these models an extremely large amount of data, like practically go and train it on the data on the internet and a few other sources which are not on the internet as well, and create a model on top of which became so large and so powerful, you were able to unlock a lot of capabilities. These capabilities included things like transfer learning. These capabilities included things like multitasking. A similar model, for example, if you know the chat GPT is GPT, that is nothing but an LLM, that can be put into use for multiple use cases. You don't necessarily need to, for example, if you have an idea that, hey, you know what, I want to build an application that can help my I want to build an application that can help students in learning the neural networks course taught at BITS Pilani Goa Campus. Random example, okay. And for that, you decide to give access to the coursework, and I mean, the point being, you want to create a chatbot that basically solves the doubts, or those doubts can be in various forms. There can be a doubt where a person may come and say, you know what, could you please explain to me, like I am a very beginner level student, I don't know anything, could you please explain it to me, could you please explain it to me in Hindi, in Tamil, in Kannada, in French. You could go and ask that, okay, fair enough, I'm still not able to understand it, I want to quickly study for tomorrow's exam, can you summarize it? In the previous spectrum, you would have to use a different model for different use cases, but now we're building a POC to show the value of it. Now one single model can do that job. And then obviously with this kind of power, there was this ability to augment the impact of human workforce, and generative AI with the advent of ChatGPT pretty much became the norm. Like right now, a lot of companies are rushing towards using generative AI because it serves some very meaningful purpose. A very easy way to kind of show the value of any tool is to kind of go and quote the numbers from McKinsey. McKinsey says that generative AI could add equivalent of 2.6 trillion to 4.4 trillion dollars of value annually. And if you look at it, this is where the industry is, where they're trying to use generative AI. But then this is not enough. You may ask that, okay, fair enough. All of you are not going to go and intern at deep learning, at DeepMind or Google Brain, right? Or OpenAI. So what is that you can do? The fact of the matter is, even if companies want to pick these off-the-shelf models and they want to build applications, they have to put in specific engineering techniques in place to be able to use them effectively. And companies are actually struggling with issues like, they want generative AI tools to work with their data while ensuring privacy, security, and optimal costs. And they also want to ensure that the teams are not putting manual effort significant. They're not putting a lot of effort in training. Privacy is not being compromised, and real-time vector indexing is happening. To decipher these terms, let me quickly give you a perspective what I mean by that. So let's take this use case that you are right now a developer at you. Let's say you have two use cases. One, you are a developer at Amazon, and second, you're a developer at Netflix. Okay. As a developer at Amazon, your job is that you need to build a chatbot that can help the customers or the users of Amazon to find the latest products that have gone on discount on Amazon's website. Okay. Now, ChatGPT is GPT, the LLM by default. It knows the data that is like it is trained on a vast amount of data, but the latest discounts that have gone in, or let's say you run a hyper local store or Zomato, for example, which is an Indian company. If it runs a particular if it runs a particular, let's say, campaign for a particular region and it wants to show the things that are on discount, how does it go about making that happen? So in that particular case, it will have to typically integrate that external data of Amazon or Zomato with the chat GPT's GPT. Okay, that's one use case. Now let's understand another use case. Another use case can be, let's say you are working for Netflix and the CEO of Netflix wants to know that, okay, fair enough, um, give me how are the retention numbers faring in Goa for Netflix. Okay, or let's say they have released a new movie in this particular region. How is this movie performing in this region? Okay. Now for that particular thing, if you look at it, now the Netflix, you traditionally for these kind of things, they used to hire data analysts who would do nothing but go across a lot of data sources and try to put that in an Excel sheet or a document and then present it to the leadership. And that is what a lot of data analysts have been doing for a long period of time, actually. Okay. But then comes this option where you can simply go and, you know, somehow tell the model of like chat GPT or something like that, that, you know what, this is what you already know. And this is what this person is trying to know. Like this CEO of Netflix, they just want to know these numbers, and these are these numbers, by the way. So you don't go and give them the entire context. You just go and explain them what is absolutely necessary. Okay. And then that ends up building this particular application that educates that provides folks the ability to interact and get these information in real time. So in either of the two cases that we see, there are a few things that we are trying to unlock here as a capability. First thing is that we're going beyond the realm of what GPT inherently offers. We are exposing it to a data that is, for example, in the case of Netflix, it is a private data, right? You don't want your data analyst to go and simply copy paste that data on something like chat GPT so that now your internal numbers are exposed. You want it to be secret in nature, and you want them to be still able to build on top of it. For those things, what we go and use is something called as RAG. And this bootcamp will focus on that itself. Okay. Um, Before I proceed further, let me quickly check if there are any doubts in the comment section. There's just one basic doubt, which is like, are there any uh, prerequisites? So that is something that we'll cover quickly. But beyond that, there is no query whatsoever. Cool. Let me answer this question around prerequisites quickly. So the prerequisite for the bootcamp, by the way, is if you want to just understand what LLMs is, what RAG is, and want to be like enter into the realm of GenAI product management and all, then you don't need to know event development for that matter. Some understanding of basic AI would be helpful for sure, but then it is not mandatory in for you to be able to proceed. Apart from that, if you want to complete the boot camp, definitely knowing something like Python would be helpful. If you have built with open source, that will be helpful because that will help you to solve doubts quickly on your own. That will help you to work with something like Docker and other open source technologies quite well. There are certain things that are fundamentally a part of open source development, which practices, if you know, would be helpful in this case. Okay. I don't see any other comments, so I'll quickly proceed. What kind of tech stack do we need for these course? We'll come to that. Okay. So whatever tech stack that we'll be using, by the way, is covered within the bootcamp. So we'll be using something called as RAG framework, like a framework for, we'll be using a data source, but then we'll go ahead and use a framework for retrieving that information. Okay, let me cover that towards the end. Otherwise, I'll end up throwing jargons which may not make a lot of sense at this point. So we're just trying to explain that GenAI companies are trying to become GenAI first. They don't know how to go about it. They don't know the safe way to go about it, and they don't know what is the GenAI stack that is minimalistic, production ready, scalable, and secure. Okay, and by the end of this particular bootcamp, you will be able to address this concern for them. You will be able to build projects that uses Docker, and you will be building these things completely using open source, which is an awesome thing. Okay. Before that, let me quickly go and show you one small thing. Oh shit! Sorry, my screen wasn't shared. Just noticed. 1 second. 1 second. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So you saw the example of Netflix and Amazon. Let me take you to this particular flow. So we understood why something like ChatGPT is not useful. We understood the limitations that exist. Something like GPT is excellent at answering questions that it knows, but it does not know the answer to the questions that are beyond its training data. And that's where typically folks like you would become important. Traditionally, so far, we have had two options of going about it, if you know. One option has been fine tuning, second has been prompt engineering. Now let's understand what is the limitation in either of the two cases. Okay. And the reason we're covering this is because that build becomes the foundation for what we're going to cover in this particular bootcamp. So, how many of you know what fine tuning is, by the way? A show of hands or something like um, yes or hello could be. Something in the comments would be helpful to know if you understand what fine tuning is. Okay, I'll quickly describe like fine tuning if it is to be quickly shared. What it does is it goes about the idea of typically take a model that is already built by someone else, because especially when it comes to something like a large language model, it is very large and you can't have that amount of data in house. You don't have that much amount of compute power also, and you don't want to put the effort of building something from scratch because somebody has already put in that effort. So traditionally, what you would do is like look at data scientists. If you look at their projects, what they would do is they will typically pick an ML model that already exists, and then they will prepare a data, and then they will simply go and refine and tune their pre-trained weights of their model on that label data set that they have prepared, so that their model that they already have can perform better at those specific tasks basis the structured data set that you've uploaded, the label data set that you've uploaded. Okay. Now, the problem here is if you look at it, when I'm describing this, naturally, you can think that one key element that is coming in the picture is that you're talking about prepared data, like structured data, label data set, right? So preparing this takes time. You have to ensure a lot of things. For example, you have to ensure that the data that you are using is not biased. For example, you simply download data set from the internet and you train a model on top of it, fine tune a model on top of it. The data in itself is biased. Then your model will also end up inheriting the biases of your training data. You don't want that to happen. Second is it's consuming a lot of amount of time, and it's way more expensive in nature. The compute power required in this is much more. Okay. For example, a technique, just to give you some perspective, that we are going to use RAG is roughly 80 times cheaper than fine tuning. Okay. And just not that, I mean, it is also computationally way more expensive. Just if you don't, even if you are using it local, if you're not going for something like open, I'm 80 times fast, 80 times costlier is the number quoted by OpenAI. But even if you are doing it locally, it will end up becoming significantly expensive, because then you are going and adjusting the weights of a very, very large model. Okay. Um, and the last challenge is data freshness. Let's say if you're talking about the use case that we just saw, which is around this use case of Netflix or Amazon, where the CEO wants to know the retention numbers or the growth numbers or how many people in Goa have watched a particular movie. Now, this number will change every day, right? It will change every week. In that case, how do you go and do this? Do you prepare data every day, and do you go and fine tune a model every single day? Difficult. You can't make it happen every single day. And when your model becomes larger, then it becomes even more complex. Even in the case of Amazon is a way more complex example, where you're talking about making it work with a lot of data that is changing on a continuous basis. Even then you can't go and fine tune it, right? So that's when we say that, okay, fair enough, let's try to look at some other option. And there comes there comes this concept of in context learning, where you say that, okay, I don't have to go and work on the model itself. For example, the GPT's chat GPT's GPT, don't have to go and work on the model itself. But if you can simply go and give it just the right context, that okay, for example, the way I give exam, let's say if you have to give an open book examination, you know what the concepts already, you have studied a lot of things, but what you're doing in an open book examination is that you're simply going and referring just what is needed, and by looking quickly you're going and replicating that in your answer paper, right? So similarly, you, if you're able to give just the right context at the right time, your model can give the output. And a very common way to go about giving the right context is via prompt engineering. What is prompt engineering? When you interact with something like LLMs, which is example like ChatGPT, okay, and if you just put the prompt in a very right manner, you wanted to do some tasks, and if you give it in the right manner that is very comprehensible and very easy to understand, then it will end up giving you the output. But then there are challenges that occur in this also. For example, if you simply say that, okay, given the, in this case, let's say you're somehow able to enter, given this following discounts data, answer this particular query, random example. Okay. So what will happen? Given the data that you've given, it may probably end up giving you the output. Okay. But the problem is, in that case, you are going and exposing a very private information on a regular basis. For example, if you look at the Netflix case, what is the year-on-year revenue growth of Netflix as per its latest report? If you go and copy paste this, you are going and exposing very private data on ChatGPT. Second problem is that you are, if you are a if 100 people are searching for the same query, then the LLM will go and compute this again and again for all the separate people. Like, you are kind of doing a very inefficient way to go about it. Okay. And the last context being, if you ever try to, like, if you ever try to copy paste a very long message, example, if you have chat gpt 3.5, okay, and if you go and copy paste a very huge book, just go and copy paste any book that you like, download a PDF, copy paste it on ChatGPT window, it will go and say that the message you submitted was very long. Okay. And that is because LLMs have something called as a token limit and a context limit, token limit and a context window. So when you look at any LLM, they can't go and work with an infinite amount of tokens. Okay. They can only work with a limited number of tokens or a number of words. If you look at it, what are tokens? Tokens are nothing but words or subwords with a meaning behind it. Okay. So if you look at it, something like GPT-4, not GPT-4o or GPT-4 Turbo, it can work with estimated 25,000 words. The number of words is estimated and the number of token is fixed actually for these models. Okay, so the token limit as of now for most of the models out there is limited. So if you end up, even if you are like that nasty employee who is willing to go and copy paste the entire company stats on the chat GPT platform so you can give the report to your boss on a timely basis, it's not going to work, because the problem is that yes, you typically the LLM won't allow you to go about it that way. So now you're looking to go about a more efficient option. Also, there is a very common thing, if you know, the word of the year in 2023 was something called as hallucination. Okay. And the hallucination, the word, if you know, it's a very common English word, but it did not become the word of the year because, you know, somebody like a hypnostic uh, uh, guy came in the picture and did some hallucination for people. It was because LLMs, they have this tendency of hallucinating. If I have to explain this in a very simple manner, LLMs can really give you very correct looking wrong answers. That the answer will be absolutely incorrect, but it will make it look like, okay, it's very correct. For example, until a long time ago, when I used to ask what is LLM, it used to give an answer like large linguistic model, which is large language model in reality, but it just made that shit up. So that's the tendency of LLMs. And if you look at the case where you are working in an enterprise setup, a company has hired you. You can't simply go and uh, give a model or a tool that is hallucinating. So your manager has to be under the suspense that, okay, when it is giving the right answer and when it is not, you don't know. Okay. So for solving all of this particular use case, we come to something like RAG. And but let's quickly understand, there are some challenges that we will be fixing here, like manual work, limited context, unable to save data for future use. If the same thing is coming again and again, you will be repeating the compute there. It's there is the issue of hallucination. There's no real time data, like you can't go and simply copy paste things from time to time, and privacy issues will exist. And for that itself, what companies go and use is something called as RAG, which is the retrieval augmented generation. Okay, so whenever you have heard of tools if you've heard of tools like LangChain or Llama Index and all those things, they're nothing but framework. Even Pathway, it can, if you look at the repository of Pathway, it should mention somewhere that it helps you build end-to-end RAG pipelines, or you can also use it for in-memory vector indexing or real-time incremental indexing and all those things. Essentially, what it is doing is RAG itself. So LangChain, for example, is used for it is used for RAG. Pathway is used for RAG. Llama Index is used for RAG. And what we do in the case of RAG is, I'll quickly give you that context so that you understand at this point in time. This is the example. If you look the example of in context, when we explained in context learning, this is a very popular scene from Mr. Bean, if you remember, where Mr. Bean, what they are trying to do is they are trying to copy in an examination. And what they do is, let's say here, they need to go and answer a question. So they know that they can't go and simply write word by word. So what they will do is they'll look at just quickly, like in a couple of seconds, and then go and replicate that in their notebook. So what you can also do in the case of LLMs is that, let's say you have something like GPT or Chat GPT. If you're just able to retrieve just what you need to know on top of the existing information, and just tell that okay, fair enough, the CEO of Netflix wants to know the retention numbers in Goa. So the entire data corpus would have a lot of information, but we simply retrieve the numbers of Goa, and put that in the backend to the LLM. That, you know what, Mudit is trying to know the retention numbers for Goa, and these are the numbers. And then LLM already knows how to go and give the answers, and simply it ends up giving the answer. So when you look at the definition of RAG, it says retrieval augmented generation. So what you're doing is you are retrieving the most relevant information. You're augmenting your prompt. Like for example, in this case, the prompt is what is the retention numbers. You're augmenting it with the data, that is the retrieved data. And then you're generating answer with the help of Chat GPT, like GPT. Okay, with the help of LLMs. So that is what RAG is. And in this case, what you end up doing is, if you end up implementing this locally, you're not going and exposing any private data to any company. Okay, you are also going and operating with a very efficient manner, where you can where you can control things, what is to be exposed, what is not to be exposed. You're giving it just the right context when needed. If a lot of people are searching for the same query, you can have something like caching mechanism in place, so that your compute is saved on those cases, and your data stays private. Like privacy is a very huge aspect. So what we'll end up building is, when we say that by the end of this boot camp, you'll be using these tools and you will be practically able to build a better version of Chat GPT. What we mean by that is not that you are going to, say that, okay, tomorrow we'll replace OpenAI, but you'll go and leverage what OpenAI has given to you in the form of APIs, or what Gemini has given to you, or what open source models like Llama 2 and Mistral has given to you. And you will combine them with data sources which are external to the model, which may be stored in Google Drive, which may be stored in Microsoft SharePoint, which is nothing but Google Drive of Microsoft. Okay, and you'll simply retrieve that using these frameworks and generate the answer. And this, my fellow learners, is a very important skill to have on today's date. It's the de facto way that companies choose, uh, in most of the cases, to build any production ready generative AI application, and it's a very in demand skill. So how do we go about learning these things? This is the course curriculum. We'll start with introduction of LLMs and Gen AI. This was slightly like, this may be for those of you who are pretty new to this domain, this might have been a lot of information to consume, but don't worry, we'll be going through it in a very structured format. um, Today you will be receiving the course link, and you can go and start learning from that. We'll be releasing these modules one by one. Okay, so we'll start off by learning introduction to LLMs and generative AI, so you know what these things are. Okay, then we learn about word vectors and vector embeddings. In a very simple language, if I have to go and uh, if I have to simply explain what is word vectors and vector embeddings, you can imagine that, yeah, an LLM is a machine. It's a model at the end of the day, right? And models, they work with numbers. They don't work with there's some computation that is to be done in the backend, and the way these computations are done is by converting this text in numerical format, and that numerical format is nothing but vectors. And that forms a very foundational thing when you're trying to understand how LLMs work and how LLM applications work, like how RAG also works. So we'll understand what is what vector, how vector embeddings work and everything. Then we'll briefly understand prompt engineering and token limits. And then prompt engineering, by the way, is like learning a language, in the sense that you can't become an expert in English just by learning the rules of it. You have to go and apply it on a continuous basis. But we'll try to educate you upon the very basic set of information. You can go and apply that. And then the most important part, we'll cover RAG and enterprise LLM architecture. And then there'll be hands-on development of real-time LLM app. This is what is the mandatory step. You all have to build this thing. There'll be a couple of quizzes in this module and this module. So once we have learned the key milestones and covered a very decent amount of things, we'll be going and testing them via quizzes. And yeah, that's a bit about the coursework and everything. And yeah, and a quick thing that I would want to also share here is like a de facto way of engaging with each other will be through a couple of places. First is you must make sure that you are added on the Discord server of Pathway. Okay, so just to give you a very quick information, like Pathway is a real-time data processing framework and into RAG, so a lot of companies they use it. So like you might find a lot of practitioners who are very senior in the field and are using Pathway. So make sure that you are kind of putting your best foot out there. You can also find a lot of meaningful connections in the space. Find really awesome folks to interact with. For example, one person that I see here, Jemek, for example, is a colleague. Pathway. He's somebody who has taught courses at ETH Zurich. He's a very known guy in the research community. And Kuba, Pavel, these are very solid folks. These are from Pathway, by the way. But even beyond Pathway, you'll see a lot of people who are very solid practitioners in the industry. So you can go and try to put your best foot forward. Start by introducing yourself in the introductions channel. Okay. Before we start asking doubts in the Get Help channel, what we have done is we have created a dedicated channel for this bootcamp, that is BITS Goa Bootcamp. Okay. So this is the link of the YouTube session that we're speaking on right now. After this thing, you will also find the link to the coursework here itself. Any doubt that you may have, you should go and ask here. But before that, we strongly encourage that you go and introduce yourself in the introductions bit. And in the introduction bit, instead of going and simply saying that you're here for learning the bootcamp and all, look at it. People actually go and try to share about themselves, about the background, any project that they might have built and all, because the community, first of all, is not about boot camps. Second, when you are here, the goal is that you reach a point where you're building some really awesome projects and possibly finding some really awesome collaborators. Maybe if not right after the boot camp, maybe after 6 months, 1 year, when you're becoming better in the process gradually, right? So ensure that you're trying to put a strong introduction for yourself. And you can ask doubts here. Any doubts that you may have, you can put here, including whenever you're asking the doubts, there's a very basic expectation that we may have, by the way. First thing is that you should always try to Google and ask those doubts to LLMs and ChatGPT and everything. First, very important point. Why? Because it just goes with the idea of open learning and self. It's like a very easy way of saying this is that it's not a spa, it's a gym. So you have to put in efforts from your end significantly. We are here to guide you. We are the coach in the gym. But then you have to, and we are providing you the equipments and everything. It's you who have to run. It's you who have to lift the weights and everything. Okay. So ask your doubts in platforms like LLMs and everything. Second is go and ask your doubts in the relevant forums. For example, if you're using Pathway, there is a Discord for Pathway. There's a dedicated channel created specifically for this bootcamp. Once the bootcamp is over, even after that, you'll have the Get Help channel that we saw. Okay. But apart from that, also, let's say you are using something like Llama 2 or using something like Streamlit. Streamlit is a very popular tool for building the front end of data science applications. Okay. So you must go and ask on the Streamlit community as well in parallel. My screen stopped sharing. I don't know why. But yeah, anyway. Okay. Still. So the next thing is that you should go and ask. You must go and ask on those forums. Okay. And the last thing is that you must ensure that you are also helping others. If you're seeing that a doubt is being asked and that you know already the answer to that particular question, try to help your fellow learner. That also goes with the idea of community learning, and that naturally helps us remember you as a learner, as a community member. So it's a good thing in future. If you have to collaborate, we would remember the kind of contributions you have done in the past. Okay. And in terms of action item, very important right now, there are a couple of action items that I would mention to you. First one is, let me just again share my screen. Yeah. So first one is, by the way, for those of you asking, I think, great. So there's somebody's already answered a question where like there are a couple of questions around Discord link where it will be shared and all. So great. This is what I'm talking about. If you see a question that you know the answer to, try to go ahead and answer it yourself. So the link of the Discord channel is here on the top, on the footer of pathway.com. You go to any particular page, you'll find it there. You have to, however, find this particular channel that is specifically for your bootcamp. Okay, that's point number one. Next thing is a very important ask, request, and like yeah, is that go to these two repositories that we'll be using quite extensively going forward, and you will be knowing how to build applications with this. But my ask here is that you go and start them. Sign in on GitHub and start these repositories. It does a couple of things. First of all, it helps you stay updated with things that we're doing here. Second, other factor is apart from learning aspect and staying updated, it helps you show your support uh, to this particular course. So if you like the work we're doing as a community initiative, it's your way of showing the support back to Pathway. So if you could go and explore these two repositories and make sure you drop a star, that will be a very kind thing for you to do. Yeah, that's it. Now questions. First question is Discord link we have shared with you all. The link to the coursework, the learning materials will be shared by email. Okay. There's this question, how many daily hours will be required in this course? Rajat, this really depends on where you're starting from. Like we have seen in the boot camp that there are people who are pretty much in the industry for a few years. They've been building using open source frameworks for a while. So for them it takes a lot less time. Then in that case you can go and try to build more advanced applications because we are here to proactively help you. But apart from that, I would say that if you're just starting from scratch, you should try to give at least 6 to 10 hours per week. The idea is it's a 3 week boot camp itself. The theory part will be covered in the first 10 days or so, and the latter half, which is the latter 1.5 weeks, will be reserved for you to build these projects. Because if it is the first time where you're going and building projects around RAG, and in this case, for example, you need to use something called as Docker. If you are using a Windows laptop, you might have to go for something like Docker. Don't worry, by the way, we have explained how you can use those tools, so you will not feel stuck. Also, Docker is so popular of a tool that if you get stuck, you can find a lot of tutorials out there. A lot of community documentation that is available out there, so you'll be able to use that and build it. But it is expected that if you are just getting started with it, you might come across a few roadblocks and it may take you some time to address those. So ensure that you are not procrastinating and starting your hands-on development ASAP. Also, there'll be a point where you have to build project, right? It's not a generic project that all of you will be building, by the way. All of you will have to build some impactful project which is ideated, that should stem out of your ideas and which is given live by you. So that ideation thing also will take some time. So once we've reached the module of RAG and all, we would nudge you to go and start thinking of ideas of projects that you can build. And on Discord you can always go and ask and uh, take feedback on the idea that you might have. Remember, the idea is that we are not competing among ourselves. The idea is that we are putting a best foot forward and showing it to the larger world that yes, we can build some impactful projects. So come and hire us, or you can also build your startups, by the way. A lot of startups that are right now backed by Y Combinator in the latest days, they use RAG quite extensively. They're built on top of RAG, as a matter of fact. So yeah. Also, one more thing that I would want to mention is, yeah, so Pathway, you have to remember that Like generally, especially on the weekends, you may see that the response may take a bit more time. So you will have to be patient. You will have to try to figure out things on yourself. Go connect with your peers and try to find answers. And most importantly, if don't keep things for the last moment. The deadline for the last project will be over a weekend. We'll give you time till Saturday, most likely, but don't keep it till Saturday. Try to ask your doubts on Wednesday or Tuesday, so that if your fellow learners or my awesome friends from DevSoc are not able to answer it, there can be queries that I may not be able to answer, and my colleagues at Pathway are better suited to answer them. So your doubt should be asked on a timely basis. Okay. Then there are a couple of questions around certificate. Will we be getting a certificate? When we'll be getting a certificate? The process and all. Yes, you'll be getting a certificate. There are prizes as well, by the way. There are prizes like Xbox controllers, JBL speakers, and so Xbox controllers and JBL speakers will be given to the ones who build the best open source projects by the end of this bootcamp. The project will remain yours only. Don't worry. But it's more of a way for us to motivate you to go and uh, hustle and try to build some really impactful stuff. By the end of it, this is Xbox controller, by the way, not Xbox. But you can, if you have a Windows laptop, you can pretty much use it to play games. We'll be giving camera lenses, all those things, phone camera lens. But then, goodies aside, there'll be a T-shirt for everyone, a swag for everyone who completes this particular boot camp. More of a souvenir for you that hey, you have spent the time, you've been very diligent in learning. So here's a token of appreciation from the end of Developer Society at BITS Goa and Pathway. And you'll also be getting a certificate. Yes, there'll be separate certificate for the top projects, and the separate certificate for the rest of the just completions. But you must, in that case, you definitely have to build an open source project as per the guidelines that will be published in the bootcamp. It cannot be just yet another project which is not as per the standards or as per the guidelines that we're publishing. And second, you must complete the quizzes within the bootcamp. Yeah. Prerequisites, Ronak, we have answered this question, which is like Python is good to know if you are looking to complete the boot camp. If you are looking to learn the concepts, uh, you can start from pretty much the scratch. It is definitely helpful to have some like understanding of deep learning AI beforehand. If you so deep learning beforehand, but it's not necessary so much. I mean, don't worry. If you are just starting from scratch, then also it's okay. Pratik is asking, is it paid? No, there are no commercials involved whatsoever. We are not an ed tech. We are a research startup. Um, how much of M2 and PNS do you need to know to do the course? Could you please mention the full form of these things? Maybe I'm not getting the abbreviation here. Oh, M2 and PNS, these are courseworks. Oh, no, 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 no. You don't need to know these things. Got it. Sorry. This is a very bits Goa-ish lingo I just figured out. Sorry. Yeah, I just got it. M2 is maths too. Yeah, correct. And PNS is probably probability and statistics. Yeah. This struck me. Yeah, been a while since I was in university. So yeah, no, it is not needed. If you, it is not needed. In fact, the walkthrough that, see, it's more focusing on applied AI. So we will understand how transformer architecture. So by the way, within the bootcamp, you will see something like the main coursework and the bonus coursework. Bonus coursework will include topics which are slightly advanced in nature and may have some additional prerequisites. But covering bonus resources are not necessary for you to be able to build the project by the end of the bootcamp. Okay. So for example, vision transformers or transformer architecture. These are, or even like let's say these are two examples, or how LSH and KNNs is used in combination for building efficient, for retrieving the most efficient context. These are all relative. If you're just starting from scratch, you may not be able to get it completely, which is completely fine. The reason we are publishing it is that if you already have a head start, then why don't you go ahead and understand these concepts as well? Um, but if you are starting from scratch, don't worry. Even if you skip those bonus resources, you will pretty much be in a place where you can build a very impactful project that can also be among the best ones in the coursework. Okay. And I saw one more comment that was a very good summary. Yeah. So it's like, is it right to say that RAG is a way to automate prompt engineering by retrieving necessary context? Yes and no. Um, because prompt engineering typically it's a very, very great way of looking at it, by the way. it kind of goes on to show that you have understood to a significant extent. But prompt engineering, as I understand it, is usually it's a term, right, which is coined. These all concepts, LLMs, GenAI, and all transformer architecture, RAG. These things are very powerful, but invented very recently. So these terms may have different connotations, different meanings. Prompt engineering, as I understand, generally it is used when it's about how I am putting my input on the chat platform or whatever prompt in the most efficient manner. Okay. Or if I'm using something like Copilot, then how am I putting the best input to get the best possible output? When we look at RAG, typically the input is not necessarily expected from the user, it comes from the backend, and you are not going and typing a lot of things. So it doesn't necessarily come under the subset of prompt engineering. But when you say automating prompt engineering, I get the sense that you're trying to make, and that's the right direction of looking at it. It's however not the most appropriate definition. Don't worry, you will be able to understand these are very basic things. You'll be able to understand it very easily. Yeah, very important. Will this live session be available on YouTube for future reference? Yes, this session will be available for future as well. But this particular bootcamp is mostly comprising of recorded sessions. And this was a kickoff session, so we can address most of your queries here. But most of the sessions are recorded. It's for a reason that we understand a lot of you might be interning as well, and you may not have the time to join live, and we don't want you to miss out. Okay, so the reason is that, and it'll be recorded. And second is, yeah, there are a lot of really awesome resources which are recorded and already available. So we would definitely want to play on our strengths and reuse those absolutely awesome resources. So it will be a recorded thing. We'll be asking and answering doubts in an async mode via Discord. Yeah, and if there is any other live session apart from this, we'll also let you know. Any course structure doc? Yes, Pratik, there will be a link that we'll be sharing over email. That's what I've said. I hope all of you have registered, by the way. If you have not registered, naturally you will be missing out on that link. My email address is mudit@pathway.com. So you'll be receiving an email address from that itself. Please make sure that you are going and searching that. You are going and checking in your inbox if you have received an email from pathway.com and you're starring it. What it does is it ensures that you are not missing out on any future communication. As I said, we are a technology company. So in general, anyway, whenever we try to email, we rarely do that. And in that cases, we go and send only the some of the developments or awesome things happening in the space. Okay. Apart from that, the reason I'm saying you to start it is that you should not miss out on any notification for the bootcamp. Okay. Pratik is saying that he hasn't registered. So you can go and register by the link. Let me, Ronan or Divyansh, could you please post it in the comments if possible? By the way, they are pretty much here with us in the background. Yeah, this is a collaborative initiative, and they are actually making all of these things happen. So make sure that if you are on campus or if you're beyond campus, you definitely go. If you happen to stumble upon folks from DevSoc, you say thanks to them for putting in the effort here. There's a question: which LLM model will be used by RA? RA or RAG? I'm assuming it's RAG here. So by the way, the form link has been put in the comments, so you can go and access it. Now RAG, if you look at it, RAG is just a technique. It is not specific to Pathway. So you can go and use any LLM if you look at it. In this particular coursework, we'll teach you how to build applications using Gemini, because Gemini gives free credits. And we'll teach you how to build using OpenAI, because OpenAI is the most adopted one in the professional space. However, you might have to spend $2 to buy its credits. $2 or $5, which is like roughly 200-500 rupees, will help you get the access, but it's not necessary, because if you are building with Gemini, that will also do the job. And you can also build using open source models. Building with open source is a very strong thing to show, because right now companies, when you build with an open source model, you're not exposing data to any third party, and that is a very important thing for companies. And that's why it's a very solid requirement that comes from industry. So even if you're building a basic RAG application that uses open source models, that project in itself, with a very proper documentation, README, the frameworks that we're using. In fact, Pathways framework in itself is a production ready application, is a production ready framework. Is that you're building an application by the end of the day, which can be pretty much used in practical use cases as well. So you're showcasing a really powerful project. So naturally, if you're putting the additional effort of using open source models, it's a good thing. We'll be giving the documentation for it. Okay. Yeah. Are we going to work on Azure? So typically Azure does have Azure. Yes and no. I mean, Azure does give you the LLMs as well via OpenAI. There's Azure OpenAI services. Even they give you free credits, by the way. So you can go and use them if you want. Otherwise, this course is not focused so much on deploying models and all those things. So yeah, not on that spectrum. But if you want to use the LLMs given by Azure, you can pretty much go and do it. Those logos that we showed you there was more of way to for you to maybe recollect. If you would have seen these logos somewhere, you're wondering what these things have meant, where are they used, then this is where they're used. Okay, cool. I don't see any other questions, so we'll wrap up now. Very again quick request is that make sure you are starring the repos to show your support to Pathway, and yeah, share it with your friends who you think you would want to have in a learning journey, whom you can ping that, hey, for example, let's say Ronan is my buddy, I can ping him that, dude, I'm stuck here, let's work, hustle through this weekend and build a project. So if you find friends like that, go ahead and encourage them to join along with you. That's usually a good strategy to learn. Cool, then thank you everyone. And yeah, looking forward to interacting with you ahead in the course. Cheers. Bye.